How to win in life, master the game and conquer the future. Introduction. Listen closely, most of you are playing a game you were never told the rules to, and you're wondering why you're losing. You've been lied to. You've been told that if you work hard and wait your turn, the world will eventually hand you the trophy. It won't. In the next 90 minutes, we are going to burn that script. I am going to show you how to hijack the mechanics of success, master the invisible board, and conquer a future that most people are too afraid to even imagine. The game is already on. It's time you started winning it. Chapter 1: The Victim's Tax. Listen to me. Every second you spend looking for someone to blame is a second you are paying a tax you cannot afford. Most people think they are being realistic when they complain. They think they are just stating the facts when they talk about the broken economy, their toxic upbringing, or the boss who doesn't appreciate them. They aren't stating facts. They are paying the victim's tax. The victim's tax is a silent, invisible drain on your potential. It's a levy on your time, a garnishment of your energy, and a high-interest loan against your future. Every time you point a finger outward, you are handing over your power to someone else. You are saying, this person or this situation has more control over my life than I do. You have a choice. You can be right, or you can be successful. You can be the person who has a perfectly valid excuse for why they failed, or you can be the person who won anyway. Winners understand a truth that the world tries to hide. Fairness is a fairy tale told to keep the losers complacent. The universe does not owe you a level playing field. It does not care about your intentions. It only cares about results. Ownership is the only currency that matters. Let's look at the math. Imagine two people, both starting at zero. The first person, we'll call him the stagnant complainer, spends his 20s blaming the market. He stays at a job he hates because the economy is bad and nobody is hiring. He spends his 30s blaming his parents for his lack of confidence. He spends his 40s blaming his kids for his lack of time. For 20 years, he has been paying the victim's tax. His net worth is low, but his excuse net worth is through the roof. He is the king of a mountain of reasons why he couldn't make it. Now look at the second person, the successful failure. This person starts a business and goes bankrupt in 2 years. It's brutal. The market shifted, and he lost everything. But instead of blaming the Federal Reserve or the unfair competition, he asks one question: what did I miss? He takes 100% ownership of the bankruptcy. He doesn't look for a shoulder to cry on, he looks for a lesson to build on. He pivots. He starts again. Within 5 years, he's back on top, not because he was lucky, but because he refused to pay the tax. He kept his currency. That's the key. Ownership isn't about being at fault. It's about being in control. You might not be at fault for the tragedy that hit you, but you are 100% responsible for how you respond to it. If you didn't cause the problem, that's fine. But if you don't take ownership of the solution, you've just handed your life over to the person who caused the problem. Why would you give them that much power? You don't need their permission to change your life. You don't need the economy to get better before you start your project. You don't need your boss to recognize your value before you start providing more value than you're paid for. If you are waiting for the world to be fair, you are going to be waiting in a very long line of very broke, very miserable people. It's not about the flaws in the system, it's about the discipline of the player. The system is rigged. It's always been rigged. Taxes are high, the competition is cutthroat, and the rules change whenever the elites feel like it. That is the baseline. That is the environment. You can spend your life protesting the gravity, or you can build a plane that flies in spite of it. The moment you stop complaining about the wind is the moment you start adjusting your sails. Ownership is the only currency that matters. Every time you hear yourself saying, I can't because, I want you to stop. I want you to realize that you are literally taking money out of your own pocket and throwing it away. I can't because of the government. Tax paid. I can't because of my ex-spouse. Tax paid. Tax paid. I can't because I'm too old, young, tired. Tax paid. You are bankrupting yourself one excuse at a time. Stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being an architect of your results. If you are in a dead-end job, ownership says, I chose to work here, and I am choosing to stay here until I build a better bridge. If your health is failing, ownership says, my current habits created this body, and my new habits will fix it. This is a tough love realization. It's heavy. It's uncomfortable. But it is the only path to freedom. You have a choice. You can keep your pride and your excuses, or you can give them up and get your life back. The most successful people I know are not the ones who had it easiest, they are the ones who were the most unreasonable with themselves. They refused to accept any narrative that didn't end with them winning. They stopped asking, why is this happening to me, and started asking, what am I going to do about it? That's the key. Transformation doesn't happen when you change your surroundings. Transformation happens when you change your internal accounting. When you stop paying the victim's tax, you suddenly find yourself with a surplus of energy and focus. You start seeing opportunities where you used to see obstacles. You start moving faster because you aren't carrying the dead weight of your own resentments. Ownership is the only currency that matters. If you want to conquer the future, you have to be the one holding the wheel. You have to be the one who signs for the losses so you can be the one who collects the wins. The stagnant complainer is still sitting in the same chair, telling the same story to anyone who will listen, waiting for a fairness that will never come. The successful failure is already 3 levels ahead, because he knew that the only way to win the game is to stay on the board, no matter how hard the hits come. You've stopped blaming the world. You've stopped paying the tax. You've decided that you are the captain of this ship, regardless of how rough the seas get. You have reclaimed your power. But having power is only half the battle. Now, you have to learn what to do with it. Most people gain a little momentum and then immediately waste it by trying to impress the very people they should be ignoring. You mastered your victimhood. Now, let's talk about the noise that's still holding you back. In the next chapter, we will talk about validation is a drug. On to the next chapter. Chapter 2, Stop Proving and Start Doing. Validation is a drug. It is the most dangerous substance on the planet because it doesn't destroy your body, it destroys your potential. Most of you are not working to build a life, you are working to build an image. You are performing. You are treating your ambitions like a stage play where the goal is to hear the audience clap. But here is the cold, hard truth, applause doesn't pay the bills, and likes don't build empires. You have a choice. You can be seen winning, or you can actually win. You can spend your energy convincing people that you are successful, or you can spend that same energy becoming successful. Most people choose the former because it's easier. It's a shortcut to a dopamine hit. They want the status without the substance. They want the trophy without the sweat. But in the real world, the only thing that matters is the result. The scoreboard doesn't care about your ego. We live in the era of the Instagram entrepreneur. You know exactly who I'm talking about. This is the person who spends 3 hours scouting a location for a photo shoot, renting a luxury car they don't own, and writing a hustle caption that they didn't live. They spend more money on the lens than they do on the product. They are obsessed with the proof of success before they have even started the process of success. They are addicted to the great job comments from people they don't even like. Contrast that with the silent builder. This is the person in the garage. The person with the messy hair, the cheap coffee, and the phone on Do Not Disturb. They haven't posted an update in 6 months. Their friends think they've disappeared. Their family thinks they're unfocused. But while the Instagram entrepreneur is busy chasing a filter, the silent builder is chasing a breakthrough. They are doing the work in the dark room. That's the key. True power is generated in the dark room. The dark room is where you develop your skills when nobody is watching. It's where you master your craft when there is no audience to cheer you on. It is lonely. It is boring. It is repetitive. And it is the only place where champions are made. If you can't work without an audience, you will never be a master. If you need a pat on the back every time you complete a basic task, you are a servant to other people's opinions. You don't need their permission to be great. You don't need a blue check mark to validate your expertise. You don't need your peer group to agree with your vision. In fact, if your peer group agrees with everything you're doing, you're probably playing too small. You are seeking consensus when you should be seeking conquest. Stop trying to prove to your high school friends that you made it. Stop trying to show your ex that you're doing better. The scoreboard doesn't care about your ego. When you perform for an audience, you lose your edge. You start making decisions based on what looks good rather than what is good. You take fewer risks because you're afraid of looking stupid in public. You play it safe. You become a politician of your own brand, constantly polling the public to see if they approve of your next move. It's not about visibility, it's about discipline. Discipline is the ability to stay in the dark room until the work is so undeniable that you don't have to say a word. When your bank account is full, you don't have to talk about money. When your body is elite, you don't have to talk about the gym. When your product is the best in the market does the talking for you. You have a choice. Every time you feel that itch to post a work in progress or tell someone about your big plans, I want you to kill it. Swallow the words. Keep the energy inside. Every time you tell someone what you're going to do, you release a little bit of the tension that was supposed to drive you to actually do it. You get a fake win just by talking. Stop stealing your own momentum. The scoreboard doesn't care about your ego. Let's talk about behavioral instruction. From this moment forward, I want you to adopt the rule of silence. For the next 90 days, stop announcing your goals. Stop posting your morning routine. Stop looking for accountability partners who are really just validation partners. If you are actually working, you don't have time to tell the world how hard you're working. That's the key. The more you speak, the less you do. The Instagram entrepreneur eventually runs out of money for the photo shoots because they forgot to build a business. They are left with a feed full of lies and a life full of regret. Meanwhile, the silent builder emerges from the garage with a machine that disrupts an entire industry. They didn't have to prove they were a winner. The world woke up one day and realized they had already won. You don't need their permission. You don't need the world to see the struggle to appreciate the success. In fact, success is much sweeter when it's a surprise to everyone else. Let them wonder. Let them doubt. Let them assume you've given up. Their confusion is your fuel. While they are busy projecting an image, you are busy projecting power. It's not about the likes, it's about the leads. It's not about the follows, it's about the fortress. You are building a life that is sturdier than a digital profile. You are building a reality that exists whether the Wi-Fi is on or off. This requires a level of internal validation that most people simply do not possess. They are hollow, you must be solid. The scoreboard doesn't care about your ego. If you are currently obsessed with what people think of you, you are a piece on the board, not a player of the game. A player doesn't care if the spectators like their strategy. A player only cares if the strategy works. You must become indifferent to the roar of the crowd. Whether they are booing or cheering, your job remains the same: execute. You have a choice. You can be a person of interest or a person of influence. One is a show, the other is a force. Stop wasting your life trying to win a popularity contest that doesn't exist. The only person you need to prove anything to is the version of you that is going to be looking back in 10 years. The scoreboard doesn't care about your ego. You've learned to stop performing. You've closed the door to the theater and entered the dark room. You are finally working for the result, not the reaction. But once you start doing the work, you're going to realize that the results don't come overnight. You're going to face the long, grueling stretch where nothing seems to be moving. You mastered the silence. Now, you must master the math of the long game. In the next chapter, we are going to discuss about why success is not a mountain. Chapter 3: The Geometry of Consistency. Success is not a mountain, it is a compounding loop. Most of you fail because you treat your goals like a staircase. You expect to see one step of progress for every one step of effort. When you don't see that immediate 1:1 return, you assume the system is broken and you quit. But the universe doesn't operate on a linear scale. It operates on a geometric one. You have a choice. You can be the person who understands the math of the long game, or you can be the person who dies in the valley of disappointment. The valley is that long, grueling stretch where you are doing all the right things, but your results look like a flat line. You're eating clean, you're hitting the gym, you're making the sales calls, and the scale hasn't moved. The bank account hasn't grown. You feel like a fool. But what you don't see is that underneath the surface, the energy is storing up. That's the key. Consistency is not about repeating a behavior, it's about allowing that behavior to compound. In the beginning, the gains are so small they are invisible. If you improve by 1% every day, you don't feel 1% better on day 2. You feel exactly the same. But because of the geometry of success, that 1% doesn't just add up, it multiplies. By the end of a year, you aren't 365% better, you are nearly 37 times better. The scoreboard doesn't care about your ego. It only cares about the math. Consider the stonecutter's paradox. A man hits a boulder 100 times, and not even a hairline fracture appears. To the outside observer, he is wasting his time. He looks like a failure. But on the 101st blow, the rock splits in two. Was it the last blow that did it? No. It was the 100 blows that came before it. Each strike was a necessary investment in the final outcome. Most people quit at strike 99 because they can't see the internal structural failure they've already caused. You don't need their permission to keep hitting the rock. You don't need the world to tell you that you're making progress. You need to trust the geometry. If you are doing the work, the results are inevitable, they are just delayed. We live in a microwave society that wants slow-cooked results. You want the deep relationship, the elite physique, and the 7-figure business, but you want them in the same time it takes to order a pizza. It's not about the speed of the win, it's about the discipline of the streak. Winning is a game of don't break the chain. Every day you show up and execute the fundamental habits of your craft, you are adding another link. The links are small. They are fragile. But after 1,000 days, that chain becomes an unbreakable anchor that secures your future. The geometry of consistency means that the rewards for the 10th year are 100x larger than the rewards for the first year, even if the work is exactly the same. You have a choice. You can be a sprinter who burns out in the first 90 days, or you can be a marathoner who understands that the real race doesn't even start until everyone else has quit. The sprinter is obsessed with the big move. They want the viral video, the lucky break, or the shortcut. But shortcuts are almost always a long way to a dead end. The marathoner is obsessed with the daily move. They know that the big move is just the natural byproduct of 1,000 small moves made with violent consistency. Ownership is the only currency that matters. If you quit, you own the failure. If you stay, you own the compound interest. That's the key. You must learn to fall in love with boredom. Success is boring. It is the same meals, the same weights, the same cold calls, and the same discipline, day after day, month after month. The stagnant complainer quits because they are bored. They need variety and excitement. The winner realizes that boredom is the filter that keeps the competition away. If it were exciting, everyone would do it. The fact that it's boring is exactly why it pays so well. It's not about how much you want it, it's about how much you can endure not having it yet. Look at the history of any great empire or any great career. There is always a long, dark period where nothing seems to be happening. Amazon spent years losing money while building an infrastructure that would eventually swallow the world. Most people looked at Jeff Bezos and saw a failure. They didn't see the geometry. They didn't see that he was building a foundation that could support a skyscraper. You don't need their permission to be underground while you build your foundation. Stop trying to show off the first floor before the basement is finished. If you build too high on a weak foundation, the whole thing will collapse the moment the wind blows. Spend the time. Pay the price of the boring years. The wider the base, the higher the peak. The scoreboard doesn't care about your ego. From this moment on, your metric for success is no longer the result. Your metric is the execution. Did you do what you said you would do today? If yes, you won. Period. You cannot control the market, you cannot control the weather, and you cannot control the river card. But you can control the streak. If you win the day, every day, the geometry will take care of the decade. It's not about the outcome, it's about the architecture of the routine. You have a choice. You can keep looking for a hack, or you can commit to the math. You have mastered the geometry of time. You understand that the flat line of the present is the launching pad of the future. But even with the perfect routine, there is one thing that will try to stop you, the fear of losing what you've built. Most people stop growing because they are terrified of taking a step back to take 2 steps forward. You mastered the streak. Now, you must master the danger of the comfort zone. Now let's talk about why safety is a lie in the next chapter. Chapter 4: The High Cost of Safe. Safety is a lie. It is a psychological sedative designed to make you stop moving while the world continues to shift beneath your feet. Most of you are making decisions based on what will keep you comfortable for the next 6 months, completely ignoring the fact that your comfort is a slow-motion catastrophe. You think you are protecting your future by playing it safe. You aren't. You are actually guaranteeing your own obsolescence. In a world that is moving at terminal velocity, the only thing that is truly dangerous is standing still. You have a choice. You can be the person who embraces the friction of growth, or you can be the person who rots in the safe zone. The safe zone feels good because it's familiar. It's the job you know, the city you grew up in, and the skills you mastered a decade ago. But that familiarity is a trap. It robs you of your adaptability. It kills your hunger. It makes you soft. When the market shifts, and it will shift, the safe person is the first one to be liquidated because they forgot how to evolve. Comfort is the grave of ambition. Look at the history of industry. Look at Kodak. At one point, Kodak was the untouchable king of photography. They had the money, the talent, and the brand. They even invented the digital camera. But they were too safe. They were so comfortable selling films that they were terrified of cannibalizing their own business. They chose the safety of the present over the uncertainty of the future. They stayed in their castle while the black sand of technology rose over the walls. By the time they realized the world had changed, it was over. They went from a global empire to a footnote in a textbook. Not because success is guaranteed, but because the process of doing it makes you a more capable player. Even if you fail, you come back as a version of yourself that is harder, smarter, and more dangerous to your competition. You have a choice. You can be a museum piece, something that looks perfect but is frozen in time, or you can be a masterpiece in progress. The museum piece stays in the safe zone until it's dusty and forgotten. The masterpiece in progress is constantly being chiseled, sanded, and reshaped. It's messy. It's painful. But it's the only way to stay relevant. The moment you stop being chiseled is the moment you start being obsolete. Comfort is the grave of ambition. Stop looking for the sure thing. There is no such thing as a sure thing. There is only now and never. If you wait for the perfect time to make your move, you are paying the victim's tax we talked about in Chapter 1. You are letting your fear dictate your strategy. Successful players don't wait for the storm to pass, they learn how to navigate in the rain. They understand that safe is just another word for slow death. That's the key. You must audit your life for comfort. Where are you coasting? Where have you stopped learning? Where are you staying in a situation simply because you're afraid of the friction of leaving? Identify those areas and set them on fire. Apply the violence of focus to your own stagnation. You have to be willing to lose the good to go for the great. If you cling to the good because it's safe, you will never even see what great looks like. You don't need their permission to be a renegade in your own life. People will call you reckless. They will tell you to be realistic. They will try to pull you back into the castle of comfort because your growth makes them feel insecure about their own decay. Ignore them. Their safety is a lie, and their advice is an anchor. Not because success is guaranteed, but because the process of doing it makes you a more capable player. Even if you fail, you come back as a version of yourself that is harder, smarter, and more dangerous to your competition. You have a choice. You can be a museum piece, something that looks perfect but is frozen in time, or you can be a masterpiece in progress. The museum piece stays in the safe zone until it's dusty and forgotten. The masterpiece in progress is constantly being chiseled, sanded, and reshaped. It's messy. It's painful. But it's the only way to stay relevant. The moment you stop being chiseled is the moment you start being obsolete. Comfort is the grave of ambition. Stop looking for the sure thing. There is no such thing as a sure thing. There is only now and never. If you wait for the perfect time to make your move, you are paying the victim's tax we talked about in Chapter 1. You are letting your fear dictate your strategy. Successful players don't wait for the storm to pass, they learn how to navigate in the rain. They understand that safe is just another word for slow death. That's the key. You must audit your life for comfort. Where are you coasting? Where have you stopped learning? Where are you staying in a situation simply because you're afraid of the friction of leaving? Identify those areas and set them on fire. Apply the violence of focus to your own stagnation. You have to be willing to lose the good to go for the great. If you cling to the good because it's safe, you will never even see what great looks like. You don't need their permission to be a renegade in your own life. People will call you reckless. They will tell you to be realistic. They will try to pull you back into the castle of comfort because your growth makes them feel insecure about their own decay. Ignore them. Their safety is a lie, and their advice is an anchor. It's not about being reckless, it's about the discipline of evolution. Evolution doesn't happen in a vacuum, it happens in response to stress. Without stress, the organism stops evolving. If you want to conquer the future, you have to be the most stressed, most adaptable, most evolved version of yourself. You have to seek out the friction. You have to love the discomfort. Comfort is the grave of ambition. Every time you choose the easy path, you are sacrificing a piece of your future. You are trading your potential for a temporary feeling of security. It's a bad trade. In 10 years, that safe job might not exist. That safe industry might be automated. That safe city might be stagnant. What will you have then? If you have spent 10 years avoiding risk, you will have no skills to cope with a crisis. But if you have spent 10 years chasing the edge, you will be the person everyone else is looking to for leadership. You have a choice. You can be the person who watches the world change, or the person who changes the world. You have mastered the high cost of safety. You have stepped out of the castle and into the fray. You are no longer terrified of the new, you are fueled by it. But as you start to stack your skills and move into this new territory, you're going to realize that having raw talent isn't enough. You need to know how to layer your abilities to become truly untouchable. You mastered your comfort. Now, let's talk about how to make yourself irreplaceable. Next, we will discuss about what you listened to the lie society told you. Chapter 5, Skill Stacking, the Great Multiplier. Listen to the lie society told you, specialize or die. They told you to pick one lane, put your head down, and try to be the absolute best in the world at that one thing. But here is the statistical reality, being the number one best in the world is a lottery. There is only one Olympic gold medalist. There is only one top-tier neurosurgeon. If you compete on a single dimension, you are playing a game of brutal attrition against 8 billion people. That is not a strategy, that is a gamble. You have a choice. You can compete at the top of a crowded mountain, or you can build your own mountain. To win the game of the future, you don't need to be the best in the world at one thing. You need to be in the top 20% of 3 or 4 distinct, overlapping skills. This is the unfair advantage. When you stack skills that rarely go together, you stop being a commodity and start being a monopoly. You become a category of one. Become rare, not just better. Think about a pretty good writer. There are millions of them. They are replaceable. They are struggling. Now, look at Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert. He will be the first to tell you, he is not the best artist in the world. He is not the funniest man on the planet. And he wasn't the top business executive in the room. But he was pretty good at all three. By stacking drawing, humor, and business insight, he created a global empire. He didn't win by being the best at drawing, he won by being the only person who drew, joked, and understood corporate cubicle culture at the same time. That's the key. Skill stacking turns you into a specialized generalist. If you are a coder who also understands high-level sales and human psychology, you are 100x more valuable than a better coder who can't talk to people. If you are an accountant who can also write compelling copy and speak with authority on a stage, you are no longer just an accountant. You are a business rainmaker. You have moved from a competitive market to a creative one. You don't need their permission to deviate from the traditional career path. The traditional path is designed to produce replaceable parts for a giant machine. The machine wants you to be a specialist because specialists are easier to manage and easier to price. But the player who masters the game knows that the real wealth is found in the gray space between disciplines. When you stack your skills, you create a moat around your career that no AI and no low-cost competitor can cross. Become rare, not just better. It's not about mastery, it's about the discipline of the bridge. You have to be willing to learn things that your peers think are irrelevant. If you are an engineer, your peers think poetry is a waste of time. They are wrong. If that poetry teaches you how to communicate with emotional resonance, you will be the only engineer in the boardroom who can move an audience to action. That is the bridge. Most people are too proud or too lazy to cross it. They stay in their silos while you are building the connections that rule the world. You have a choice. You can be a general laborer in your field, or you can be an architect of systems. The laborer is valued by their hours. The architect is valued by their unique combination of insights. To build your stack, you must identify your anchor skill, the thing you are already decent at, and then aggressively add multiplier skills. Learn to speak. Learn to negotiate. Learn to understand human incentives. These are the universal multipliers that make every other skill you have worth 10 times more. Become rare, not just better. Stop trying to fix your weaknesses and start doubling down on your unique stack. If you are 70% good at 5 things, you are more powerful than someone who is 95% good at one thing. Why? Because the person who is 95% good is a specialist who can only solve one type of problem. You, the stacker, can solve problems that haven't even been named yet because you can see the world through multiple lenses at once. You are adaptable. You are future-proof. That's the key. The world doesn't pay for what you know. The world pays for the value you can create by synthesizing what you know. A pretty good chef who understands pretty good social media marketing and pretty good supply chain logistics doesn't just work in a restaurant, they own a food empire. They didn't need to be a Michelin star chef to win. They just needed to be rare. You don't need their permission to be a polymath. We are told that a jack of all trades is a master of none, but the full quote is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. That is the secret the elites don't want you to know. They want you focused on your one little screw so you never see how the whole machine works. Reject the silo. Embrace the stack. It's not about finding yourself, it's about the discipline of building yourself. You are a Lego set, not a single brick. Every new skill you acquire, no matter how small, is a new piece you can use to build a more complex, more valuable version of your life. Every book you read, every seminar you attend, and every difficult project you take on is another layer of the multiplier. Become rare, not just better. Look at your current skill set. If you lost your job today, could you be replaced by someone with a similar degree? If the answer is yes, you are in danger. You have no moat. You are paying the victim's tax of the replaceable. Your immediate mission is to identify 2 skills that your co-workers don't have and start stacking them. Don't wait until you're good enough. Start today. The geometry of consistency we talked about in Chapter 3 applies here, too. A little bit of marketing knowledge stacked on top of your technical skill today will compound into a massive advantage in 3 years. You have a choice. You can be a commodity, or you can be a category. Commodities are bought for the lowest price. Categories set their own price. You have mastered the art of the stack. You are building a version of yourself that the world has never seen before. But as you grow, as you become rarer and more valuable, you will notice a strange thing: your old environment will start to feel tight. The people you used to run with will start to pull at your cape. You mastered your skills. Now, you must master your surroundings. On to the next chapter. Your environment is a physical manifestation of your future. Chapter 6, The Social Audit. Your environment is a physical manifestation of your future. It doesn't matter how much willpower you think you have. It doesn't matter how many books you read or how many goals you set. If you are surrounded by people who are content with mediocrity, you will eventually become mediocre. You cannot outrun the gravity of your social circle. Gravity doesn't care if you want to fly, it only cares that you are weighted down. Most of you are trying to build a rocket ship while anchored to a graveyard. You have a choice. You can be the person who prunes their garden, or you can be the person who lets the weeds choke their potential. We like to think we are independent thinkers, but human beings are biological mirrors. We reflect the habits, the speech patterns, and, most importantly, the expectations of the people we spend the most time with. If your 5 closest friends are cynical, broke, and stagnant, you are already the 6th. Audit your circle or inherit their limits. Have you ever heard of the crabs in a bucket phenomenon? It's a brutal reality of human nature. When you put a single crab in a bucket, it can easily climb out. But when the bucket is full of crabs, the moment one reaches for the rim, the others reach up and pull it back down. They don't do it because they hate the crab, they do it because his escape forces them to confront their own imprisonment. Your friends who tell you to be realistic or mock your new ambition aren't trying to protect you. They are trying to protect themselves from the shame of staying behind. That's the key. Growth is a threat to the stagnant. When you start to change, when you start skill stacking and avoiding the victim's tax, you become a mirror that reflects the laziness of everyone around you. To stop the reflection, they have to break the mirror. They will use concern, humor, or guilt to pull you back into the bucket. If you stay there to make them feel comfortable, you have committed social suicide. You have traded your future for a temporary sense of belonging. You don't need their permission to outgrow people. Friendship is not a lifetime contract of stagnation. It is an alignment of values and destinations. If your destination has changed, but theirs remains, the local bar and complaining about the boss, the alignment is broken. You aren't being fake by moving on, you are being honest about your evolution. The most dangerous room you can be in is the one where you are the smartest, most ambitious person there. In that room, you have no mentors, only admirers. And admirers will never push you to the next level. Audit your circle or inherit their limits. It's not about elitism, it's about the discipline of the ceiling. Every social circle has a ceiling, a maximum level of success that is considered acceptable. In some circles, the ceiling is a 6-figure salary. In others, it's just staying out of jail. If you want to go higher, you have to break through that ceiling, which usually means leaving the room entirely. You must find a room where your current big goals are the minimum entry requirements. You need to be the dumbest person in a room of giants. That is where the growth happens. You have a choice. You can be the big fish in a tiny, stagnant pond, or you can be the small fish in a vast, deep ocean. The big fish feels significant, but he never grows. The small fish is terrified, but the ocean forces him to become something greater just to survive. Stop looking for rooms that validate your ego. Start looking for rooms that make you feel slightly embarrassed by how little you've actually accomplished. That embarrassment is the fuel for your next geometry of consistency cycle. Audit your circle or inherit their limits. How do you perform a social audit? It's a cold-blooded process. You list the 5 people you spend 80% of your time with. Then you ask, is this person a fountain or a drain? Do they provide energy, insight, and challenge? Or do they provide gossip, complaints, and comfort? If they are a drain, you must limit your exposure. You don't have to be cruel, but you have to be intentional. You are the architect of your environment. If you wouldn't let someone dump trash in your living room, why do you let them dump mental trash into your brain? That's the key. Proximity is power. If you sit near winners, you will overhear winning conversations. You will witness winning habits. You will begin to see that what you thought was impossible is actually just Tuesday for them. This is the ultimate shortcut in the game of life. You can spend 10 years trying to figure it out on your own, or you can spend 6 months around people who have already done it. Their normal will become your new baseline. You don't need their permission to seek new mentors. You don't need to explain yourself to the people you are leaving behind. The crabs will call you arrogant. They will say you've changed. Say thank you. Changing is the entire point. If you are the same person you were 5 years ago, you haven't been living, you've just been repeating the same year 5 times. It's not about the old times, it's about the new horizons. Nostalgia is a trap that keeps you anchored to a version of yourself that no longer exists. If the only thing you have in common with your friends is the glory days of high school or college, you are living in a museum. Winners don't talk about what they did, they talk about what they are doing. They talk about the asymmetry of risk and the skill stacks they are building. Audit your circle or inherit their limits. Look at your phone. Look at your last 5 text threads. Are those people pushing you to pay the price of admission for your dreams, or are they inviting you to pay the victim's tax with them? If the conversation is about people, small minds are at work. If the conversation is about events, average minds are at work. But if the conversation is about ideas and execution, you are in the right place. You have a choice. You can be liked by people who aren't going anywhere, or you can be respected by people who are changing the world. You have audited your circle. You have cleared the weeds. You have found the room where you are the small fish. Now that your environment is optimized, it's time to talk about how to place your bets. It's time to move from not losing to winning big. You mastered your circle. Now, let's talk about the math of the big win. Most people are terrified of risk because they don't understand the math of it. See you in the next chapter. Chapter 7: The Asymmetry of Risk. Most people are terrified of risk because they don't understand the math of it. They treat every risk like a life or death gamble. They think that taking a chance means putting everything on red and praying for a miracle. This is the gambler's fallacy, and it is how losers play. Winners don't gamble, they calculate. They don't look for fair bets where the risk and reward are equal. They look for asymmetry. You have a choice. You can spend your life playing it safe for linear gains, or you can learn to place bets where the downside is a bruise but the upside is a new life. In a linear world, you work 1 hour to get 1 hour of pay. That is symmetric. In an asymmetric world, you spend 1 hour writing a piece of code, or recording a video, or reaching out to a high-level mentor. If it fails, you lose an hour. If it succeeds, it could pay you for a decade. Play for the asymmetry. Look at the venture capitalist. This is the ultimate student of asymmetry. A VC doesn't look for safe companies. They look for unicorns. They know, statistically, that out of 10 investments, 6 will go to zero. They will lose every penny. 3 will do okay, barely returning the initial investment. But one, just one, will be the next Uber, the next Airbnb, or the next SpaceX. That one winner doesn't just cover the losses of the other 9, it pays for them 1,000 times over. The VC isn't trying to be right 100% of the time. They are trying to be massively right at once. That's the key. Winning is not about your batting average, it's about your slugging percentage. It doesn't matter how many times you strike out as long as your hits are home runs. Most people are so afraid of the strikeout, the small embarrassment, the minor financial loss, the rejected proposal, that they never even step up to the plate. They are protecting their ego at the cost of their legacy. They are avoiding the bruise but missing the life change. You don't need their permission to fail. In fact, you should be failing more often. If you aren't failing, it means you are only taking symmetric bets. It means you are playing in a sandbox where the rules are fixed and the rewards are capped. To conquer the future, you must move into the wild west of high upside opportunities. You must send the unreasonable email. You must start the crazy project. You must apply for the job you are unqualified for. The cost of the no is zero. The value of the yes is infinite. Play for the asymmetry. It's not about being reckless, it's about the discipline of the portfolio. You should not bet your rent money on a crypto coin. That is not asymmetry, that is stupidity. True asymmetry is when you keep your downside capped, meaning a failure won't kill you, while keeping your upside open-ended. Writing a book is asymmetric. Starting a YouTube channel is asymmetric. Networking with people 2 levels above you is asymmetric. These things take time and effort, the limited downside, but the potential return is uncapped, the infinite upside. You have a choice. You can be the safe player who never loses but never truly wins, or you can be the asymmetric player who collects a string of small, educational failures on the way to a massive breakout. The safe player is like a person who never leaves their house because they might get rained on. The asymmetric player is the one who carries an umbrella and goes out to find the gold. They understand that risk is just the price of admission for a life that isn't average. Play for the asymmetry. Stop looking for guarantees. A guarantee is just a cap on your potential. If someone guarantees you a 5% return, they are also guaranteeing that you will never get a 500% return. To win the game, you must become comfortable with uncertainty. Uncertainty is where the alpha is. It's where the profit is hidden. If everyone knew exactly how a project would turn out, there would be no reward for doing it. The reason the big win is so big is precisely because most people were too afraid to take the small risk. That's the key. You need to increase your surface area of luck. Luck isn't something that happens to you, it's something you invite by placing enough asymmetric bets. If you only place one bet a year, you need to be very lucky. If you place 100 asymmetric bets a year, you are practically guaranteed to hit a unicorn. This isn't magic, it's probability. The more doors you knock on, the higher the chance that one of them opens to a room full of opportunity. You don't need their permission to be unsuccessful for a while. The world will look at your 9 failures and call you a loser. They will laugh at your failed startups and your ignored content. Let them laugh. They are playing a symmetric game. They don't understand that you only need to be right once. When that 10th bet hits, the same people who laughed will call you an overnight success. They won't see the portfolio of failures that built your bridge to the top. It's not about the swing, it's about the stance. Your stance must be one of constant, disciplined experimentation. You are a scientist in the laboratory of your own life. Every failed experiment is just data. Every rejected idea is a lesson in what not to do next time. As long as you don't let a failure take you out of the game, as long as you cap your downside, you have an infinite number of shots. And in a game with infinite shots and uncapped rewards, the math eventually forces you to win. Play for the asymmetry. Look at your current schedule. How many of your activities are symmetric? How many are just trading time for a fixed, capped reward? Now, look for the asymmetric gaps. Where can you put in a small amount of effort for a potentially massive, life-changing result? Maybe it's a 15-minute conversation. Maybe it's a 500-word blog post. Maybe it's a new skill added to your stack. These are the seeds of your future empire. Plant as many as you can. You have a choice. You can work harder, or you can play smarter. You have mastered the math of the big win. You have stopped fearing the small failure and started chasing the massive upside. You are building a portfolio of opportunities that the safe players can't even imagine. But as you start to place these bets, you're going to find that your biggest obstacle isn't the market or the competition, it's your own attention. To win big, you have to be able to ignore the good so you can find the great. You mastered the risk. Now, let's talk about the power of saying no. Let's move on to the next chapter. Chapter 8, The Violence of Focus. Focus is not a quiet, peaceful state of mind. It is a violent act. It is the aggressive rejection of 1,000 good ideas to protect the one great idea. Most of you are failing not because you lack talent, but because you are spread so thin that you have no edge. You are trying to light a fire by moving a candle an inch every hour, instead of holding a magnifying glass still until the wood smokes. You call it multitasking. I call it a slow-motion suicide of your potential. You have a choice. You can be a generalist of mediocrity, or you can be a master of the mission. The world wants you distracted. The world wants you chasing every shiny object, every new trend, and every interesting project that comes across your desk. Why? Because a distracted person is easy to control and easy to outrun. True winners don't balance their interests, they practice a maniacal, almost frightening level of obsession. Elimination over addition. Look at the history of Apple. In 1997, the company was weeks away from bankruptcy. They were making hundreds of different products, printers, servers, desktop. That's the key. Your life is currently cluttered with 350 products. You have good hobbies, good social obligations, and good side hustles that are stealing the oxygen from your great mission. You think you are being productive because you are busy. You aren't. You are just vibrating in place. To win the game, you must have the courage to say no to things that are 8 out of 10 on the important scale so that you have the energy to give 100% to the 10 out of 10. You don't need their permission to be unreachable. You don't need to explain why you didn't answer that email, why you skipped that party, or why you aren't staying current on the latest news. Every time you check a notification, you are paying a switching tax that bankrupts your deep work. You are trading your legacy for a red dot on a screen. Winners guard their attention like a vault. They know that in an age of infinite distraction, the ability to stay focused on one thing for 4 hours is a superpower that cannot be bought. Elimination over addition. It's not about doing more, it's about being more of one thing. Mastery requires the discipline of the no. If you want to be an elite athlete, you have to say no to late nights. If you want to build a billion-dollar company, you have to say no to work-life balance in the early years. You cannot have it all at once. The lie of the balanced life is a trap designed to keep you average in every category. Pick your mountain. Climb it. Let the other mountains vanish from your sight. You have a choice. You can have a wide life that is an inch deep, or a narrow life that reaches the stars. The wide life feels safe because you have options. But options are just exits in disguise. When things get hard, and they will get hard, the person with options quits and tries something else. The person with maniacal focus has no choice but to solve the problem. They have burned the boats. They have eliminated the exits. They have forced themselves to win. Elimination over addition. How do you practice the violence of focus? You perform a calendar audit. Look at everything you did last week. What moved the needle on your North Star goal? Keep that. Everything else, the catch-up coffees, the mindless scrolling, the low-impact meetings, must be chiseled away. A sculptor doesn't create a masterpiece by adding clay, they create it by removing everything that isn't the masterpiece. You are the marble. Your focus is the chisel. That's the key. If your goals don't require you to say no to things you actually like, your goals aren't big enough. You have to be willing to be boring to the world to be brilliant in your craft. The stagnant complainer wants to do everything and ends up doing nothing. The winner does one thing until it is done, then moves to the next. They don't multitask, they sequentially dominate. You don't need their permission to be obsessed. Society loves to pathologize focus. They call it workaholism or social isolation. They want you to come back to the safe zone of the average. But every great achievement in human history was the result of someone being unreasonable with their attention. From the pyramids to the iPhone, focus was the primary fuel. If people aren't complaining about your lack of availability, you aren't focusing hard enough. It's not about the hustle, it's about the depth. Shallow work is easy. Deep work is painful. Deep work is where you push your cognitive abilities to their limit. It requires silence. It requires the phone to be in another room. It requires the violence of shutting out the world. If you can do 2 hours of deep work a day, you will outrun 99% of the population in 2 years. Elimination over addition. Look at your to-do list for tomorrow. It's too long. Cross off the bottom 80%. Take the top 2 items and treat them like your life depends on them. Ignore the rest. The world won't end if you don't check your good list, but your future will end if you don't master your great list. You are a predator, and a predator doesn't hunt 20 rabbits at once. It picks one, locks on, and doesn't stop until the chase is over. You have a choice. You can be busy, or you can be effective. You have mastered the violence of your own attention. You have cleared the clutter. You have identified your mission. But even with perfect focus, you will make mistakes. You will hit walls. The difference between the winner and the loser is how they handle the collision. You mastered the no. Now, let's talk about how to use your failures to accelerate your wins. Ego is the ultimate filter of failure. On to the next chapter. Chapter 9, The Feedback Loop Revolution. Ego is the ultimate filter of failure. It is a screen that blocks out the very data you need to survive. Most of you are more interested in feeling right than you are in being successful. You spend months, even years, polishing a plan in the dark because you are terrified of the world telling you that your perfect idea is actually garbage. But in the game of life, perfection is a hallucination. Reality is the only judge that matters, and reality is a brutal teacher. You have a choice. You can be the person who protects their ego and stays stagnant, or you can be the person who murders their ego to find the truth. The fastest way to win is to be wrong as quickly as possible. Every time you fail, you are simply eliminating a path that doesn't work. If there are 10 paths and only one leads to the goal, the person who tries and fails at 9 paths in a week will beat the genius who spends a year analyzing which path to take first. Fail fast, learn faster. Look at the world of business. For decades, companies used long-term planning. They spent millions of dollars and 3 years building a product behind closed doors, only to release it and find out that nobody wanted it. They were perfect, and they were bankrupt. Then came the lean startup methodology. Instead of a master plan, they used minimum viable products. They build a rough version in a week, throw it at the market, watch it break, and use the feedback to pivot. They don't care if the first version is ugly, they only care about the data. They don't plan, they iterate. That's the key. A feedback loop is a circle: act, measure, learn, repeat. Most people get stuck at act because they are waiting for the perfect moment. Or they get stuck at measure because they are too sensitive to handle the criticism. But winners have a high failure tolerance. They don't see a no as a rejection of their soul, they see it as a data point. They realize that a no today is the blueprint for a yes tomorrow. You don't need their permission to be a work in progress. Stop trying to look like you have it all figured out. The person who is willing to look like a fool while they learn will eventually become the master that everyone else envies. The stagnant complainer waits until they are ready. You start before you're ready, you fail in public, you take the hits, and you adjust your aim. While the world is still researching, you are already on your third version. Fail fast, learn faster. It's not about the mistake, it's about the velocity. Success is a function of how many times you can cycle through the feedback loop per month. If your competitor takes 6 months to learn a lesson and you take 6 days, you are playing a different game. You will out-evolve them before they even realize they are in a race. You must weaponize your errors. Every time something doesn't go your way, perform an immediate, post-game analysis. Don't ask, "Who did this to me?" Ask, "What did I miss, and how do I fix the code?" You have a choice. You can be a statue, beautiful, fixed, and easily broken, or you can be liquid, adaptable, resilient, and impossible to pin down. The statue is destroyed by change. The liquid flows around the obstacle and finds a new way forward. To be liquid, you must detach your identity from your ideas. Your ideas are not you. They are just hypotheses. If the data says the hypothesis is wrong, kill the idea and move on. Don't go down with the ship. Fail fast, learn faster. How do you join the feedback loop revolution? You lower the cost of failure. In Chapter 7, we talked about asymmetry. Here, we apply it. Make your bets small and frequent. Instead of quitting your job to start a business, run a $100 ad test this weekend. Instead of writing a 400-page book, write a thread on social media and see what people bookmark. Get the market's vote before you commit your life savings. Stop guessing and start testing. That's the key. The market is the only truth machine we have. Your friends will lie to you to be nice. Your ego will lie to you to feel safe. But the scoreboard? The scoreboard never lies. If people aren't buying, if they aren't clicking, or if you aren't growing, the universe is telling you that your current stack is missing a piece. Thank the universe for the information. Adjust. Go again. You don't need their permission to pivot. In fact, pivoting is a sign of intelligence, not weakness. Only a fool stays on a sinking ship because they don't want to admit they picked the wrong boat. Winners are aggressively flexible. They have a North Star goal that never changes, but their map to get there is written in pencil. They are constantly erasing and redrawing based on the terrain they actually encounter, not the terrain they saw in their dreams. It's not about perfection, it's about correction. A rocket ship going to the moon is off course 99% of the time. It only reaches its destination because it is constantly making mid-course corrections. It is a machine designed to receive feedback and adjust its engines. You are the rocket. Your failures are the navigation sensors. Without them, you are just a firework, bright for a second, then falling back to earth in the dark. Fail fast, learn faster. Today, I want you to find one thing you've been preparing for and just launch it. Launch the ugly version. Send the rough draft. Open the beta. Collect the no's like they are gold coins, because each one is buying you a piece of the truth. You are no longer afraid of being wrong, you are terrified of staying wrong for too long. You have revolutionized your relationship with failure. You have a choice. You can be right and alone, or wrong and on your way to the top. You have mastered the loop. You have outpaced the competition through pure evolutionary speed. But as you reach the summit, as you finally win the game, you will face one final challenge. It is the transition from winner to legend. You mastered the loop. Now, let's talk about how to make it last forever. Chapter 10: The Legacy Play. Most people spend their entire lives playing a finite game. They play to get the house, to get the status, to get the number in the bank account. But the problem with getting is that it ends the moment you stop. If your success is built entirely on what you can take from the world, you haven't built a kingdom, you've built a cage. True mastery, the final level of the game, is the transition from getting to giving. It is the shift from being a mercenary to being a missionary. You have a choice. You can be a footnote in someone else's history, or you can be the architect of your own legacy. Legacy isn't something that happens after you die, it is a discipline you practice while you are alive. It is the decision to stop looking at the next 3 months and start looking at the next 100 years. When you change your time horizon, your behavior changes. You stop taking shortcuts. You stop cutting corners. You start building things that are unreasonable in their quality. Built for the century, not the quarter. Look at the most powerful organizations on Earth. They don't run on mercenaries. Mercenaries work for a paycheck, and the moment a better paycheck comes along, they leave. But missionaries, people who are working for a cause, a vision, or a legacy, are unstoppable. When Elon Musk or Steve Jobs built their companies, they didn't just attract employees, they attracted believers. They shifted from, how much can I make, to what can I build that changes the trajectory of the species. Paradoxically, this missionary mindset attracts more wealth and more talent than any mercenary could ever dream of. That's the key. Selfishness is a ceiling. When you work only for yourself, you are limited by your own energy. But when you work for a legacy, when you build systems, products, and people that can function without you, you tap into an infinite power source. You become a force of nature. Influence isn't about how many people follow you, it's about how many people you have empowered to lead. True winners don't create followers, they create more winners. You don't need their permission to think bigger than your own lifetime. The world will tell you to get yours and look out for number one. That is the advice of the small-minded. If you want to conquer the future, you have to be the one who plants trees whose shade you will never sit in. This is the ultimate asymmetry of risk. The cost is your ego and your immediate comfort, the upside is an impact that ripples through generations. Built for the century, not the quarter. It's not about the accumulation, it's about the contribution. We have been conditioned to believe that the person with the most toys wins. That is a lie. The person who leaves the biggest hole when they are gone is the one who won. Look at your skill stack. Are you using it just to pad your resume, or are you using it to solve a problem that matters? When you align your skills with a mission, you become irreplaceable. You are no longer competing in the market, you are serving the mission, and the market will reward you for it with fanatical loyalty. You have a choice. You can be successful, or you can be significant. Success is about you. Significance is about others. You can spend your life building a sandcastle that the tide of time will wash away in an afternoon, or you can build a cathedral. The cathedral requires more sacrifice. It requires a longer geometry of consistency. It requires you to say no to the cheap wins of the present. But when the storm comes, the cathedral is still standing. Built for the century, not the quarter. How do you execute the legacy play? You start by asking, if I disappeared tomorrow, what would stop? If the answer is nothing, you haven't built a legacy. You must start building value engines, systems of knowledge, businesses, or communities that have their own momentum. You must mentor. You must document. You must create. You must move from the violence of focus on your own gain to the violence of focus on your output. That's the key. Legacy is the ultimate feedback loop. The more you give to the world, the more the world gives you the resources to give even more. It is a virtuous cycle that breaks the victim's tax forever. You are no longer reacting to the economy, you are creating the economy. You are no longer asking for a seat at the table, you are building the table and inviting the world to sit with you. You don't need their permission to be a legend. You don't need a title, a degree, or an inheritance. You only need the discipline to play the infinite game. While the stagnant complainers are fighting over crumbs, you are baking the bread. While the Instagram entrepreneurs are chasing the next 15 minutes of fame, you are chasing the next 15 decades of impact. It's not about me, it's about we. This is the final transformation. You have mastered the game, you have conquered the future, and now you realize that the greatest victory is ensuring that the game continues and that the players who come after you have a better board than you did. That is the legacy play. That is how you win in life. Built for the century, not the quarter. You have finished the book. You have the tools. You have the mindset. You have the unfair advantage. The victim's tax is paid in full. The safe zone is a memory. The skill stack is your armor. The social audit is complete. The asymmetric bets are placed. The focus is violent. The feedback loop is spinning. And the legacy is being written. You have a choice. You can close this audio and go back to sleep. Or you can wake up and start the first day of the rest of your legend. The closing, the final charge. Stop. Do not move. Do not look at your phone. Do not check your notifications. For the last 90 minutes, you have been given the blueprints to a life that 99% of people will never even believe is possible. You have been shown that ownership is the only currency, that comfort is a grave, and that focus is a weapon. But knowledge without execution is just a sophisticated form of entertainment. If you don't act on what you just heard, you are still a victim. I am challenging you right now, what is the one asymmetric move you are going to make today? What is the one no you are going to say to protect your great mission? The game of life is not a practice round. There is no new game plus. There is only this one shot. The board is set. The rules are in your hands. Now, go out there and win. Master the game. Conquer your future. Build for the century. This is the end of the book. It is the beginning of your empire. Move. Final words. This concludes our journey through How to Win in Life, a masterclass in high-performance strategy. You now possess the mental architecture to outperform, outlast, and outbuild the competition. But remember, the world doesn't pay for what you know, it pays for what you do. If this script resonated with you, if it sharpened your focus or gave you the unfair advantage you've been looking for, then it's time to pay it forward. Influence is part of the legacy play, and your engagement is the fuel that keeps this mission moving. Like this video if you're ready to stop paying the victim's tax. Comment below with the one asymmetric bet you are placing this week. I want to see the moves you're making. Share this with the one person in your circle who needs to hear Chapter 6, Social Audit. Help them climb out of the bucket. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. We are just getting started, and you cannot afford to miss the next evolution of this series. The scoreboard is live. The clock is ticking. Go execute.